Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Sahana Kuchibotla and I'm the founder of To Be Honest. And today I am here with an awesome author. So, can you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
My name is Jana McBurney-Lin. I was born in Illinois, a little bit outside of Chicago. And I'm the author of two books. One is called My Half of the Sky, and the other one is called Blossoms and Bayonets. Now, I did not start out to be a writer. I had my eyes on business. I mean, Chicago is a huge business center, and I went off to college in Maine. And then when I graduated, my parents gave me $1,000 to buy a new car. Well, at this point, they were living in California, and I moved out to LA, and I couldn't find a job. So after a summer of watching me search for a job and not finding anything, and by the way, I had studied debate in school
Wow, that's awesome.
with a minor in Japanese. And so after a long time of watching me suffer through not very good job prospects, because we were in a recession at that time, my dad said, well, both my parents said, don't buy a car, buy an airplane ticket and go to Japan and study the language. And when you come back, you'll have no problem getting a job. And at that time, this was the 1980s. So Japan was becoming number one. So I went off thinking naively that I could learn the language in a year and then I'd be back home. What I realized is that it takes a long time to learn language. And I wasn't that interested in business because I found that I was writing my experiences every day to fax it home to my parents and say, oh, this is what happened today. And I had a lot of odd jobs. One of them was teaching English to the only woman in the Japan National Diet's secretary pool.
Wow.
And the Diet is kind of like our Congress and Senate. And there are about, I think there are like 600 members, though. She was the only woman. And I thought, when I heard that, because first I got the job teaching these secretaries, and I'm like, who do you work for? And when I heard that, I thought, I've got to interview this woman. She's amazing. So I managed to interview her, and I asked her, what's your biggest challenge? Thinking that she would say, dealing with all this testosterone is really, frustrating. She said the biggest problem was going to the bathroom because there were no women's bathrooms. So her male secretaries would have to go into the bathroom, see that it was clear, and then stand guard while she went to the bathroom. Now, this is in 1980, I want to say 1985. And I heard this story and I thought, this is amazing. And
Wow.
it deserves more than just a fax to my mom and dad. So I wrote it out and I sent it to the local magazine and I got published. And that feeling was the most amazing feeling I've ever had. And I was hooked from then on. So I became like a local expert on what to do, where to go, different cultural aspects of Japan. And my 1 year turned into 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I met my husband, who was studying, he was getting his PhD there, and he was from mainland China. Well, the Singaporeans call it mainland China. It's just China.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got married and we moved to Singapore. And in Singapore, I kept writing, doing freelancing. But one day I was asked to write a article about natural childbirth. Excuse me.
No worries, yeah.
And I had given birth already to 3 children by this point. And I thought, I could write this whole article. I don't even need to interview anybody because each childbirth was different. But you can't do that for nonfiction. And that's when I realized maybe it's time to turn to fiction. So I took classes and then we moved to California in 1999. And I joined a writer's group, had writing lessons, and I just buckled down and tried to put out a novel. And that was my first novel, My Half of the Sky, which is a story of a contemporary Chinese woman who's trying to hold up her half of the sky, which is what the late leader Chairman Mao said, women should hold up half the sky. But she finds that her culture, her village, is so ingrained with tradition that it keeps pulling her back. So that was published in 2006 by Komenar Publishing. And then I was at a trade show or a writer's conference one time, and this gentleman came up to me and he said, "Your first novel reminds me of old Korea. Will you help me tell my story?" And he grew up in Korea before it was North and South during World War II as the son of one of the first Christian ministers in the country. And this was at a time when Japan occupied Korea. And so your only choice of God was the Emperor of Japan. And his father just refused to close his church, to stop believing. And their whole family went through hell and back. But I was hooked. And as an American, I knew very little about Korea other than we lost a war there. So it was a fine opportunity to do a lot of research and a lot of interviewing. And that was my second book. So I probably told you way more than you want to know.
No, that's
But
amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. I really like how brought your identity as like an American as well as, someone who's experienced so much of like East Asian, Japan, and Korean culture in your books and your writing. That's really awesome.
no,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I wanted to talk real quick about like how your specific writing process, like are there unique aspects to the way you start writing? Like how do you shape your ideas? When do you write? Where do you write? Like just like, something that you think might be able to help students who are struggling with, starting their own writing.
Well, as I always remind my kids, writing is like any other sport or thing that you do that requires a lot of discipline. So for example, my youngest daughter's a basketball player.
Mhm.
She practices hours shooting baskets. She doesn't make the basket all the time. That's why she practices over and over and over. And the same is true with writing. I always say the first draft is not perfect.
Yeah.
In fact, you just have to keep going back and saying, "Oh, this word doesn't quite match," or "I didn't really want to say that here. Let's move it around." So it's just a constant playing with the idea that you've thrown out on the paper. And I say throw out, it's like you need to just barf up your ideas, let it all hang out, and then you go back and say, "Okay, let's refine it here. Let's change this." So for me, my best writing time is right when I wake up. It's kind of like you're still in a dream state,
Hmm.
and your editor is not in your head yet. Because if you and it happens to me all the time, so I'm not saying I know how to do it perfectly, but you just have to keep to not edit your words before they come out. Just put it out and then go back and edit. And I'm always trying to jumpstart that by editing that before it even comes out onto the
Yeah.
page. So I write in the mornings, like a couple hours in the mornings, because I have a full-time job.
Mhm.
I'm a technical writer at Western Digital.
Wow.
but before the workday starts, I put in a couple hours. And my other thought is that some days are good and some days are not. Some days ideas just flow off your fingertips, and other days you just have to sit through it and wait and put stuff down and just keep going, because I don't believe there's such a thing as, well, there is inspiration, but it's most of it is just sweat and tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
but
So,
I would recommend people join writing groups and share their work with others. I remember one of your questions was about fear of getting published and
yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah,
And I think you remove the fear when you tell people what you're doing and not keep it a secret.
yeah, definitely.
So get it, get involved, share your work and listen to their input. May not always be good, but they might have ideas on how to help you move forward or get out of a ditch or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
So, like, just to quick sum up, you kind of suggested that, like students just try to, barf their or like, throw their ideas on a page without, pre-editing, then go back and, kind of revise what's going on. And then
right.
also to like, join writing groups or just share your writing in general to, you know, get over
People
that
you
kind of
trust.
fear. Yeah, to get over that kind of fear of like, other people reading your writing, which I totally understand. So,
Yeah. It's like
yeah.
being naked, you know.
Yeah.
If if you if you just come out of the woods all naked, it's really embarrassing. But if you say, listen, I'm going to be naked, don't be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And you come out, then everybody's like, oh, hi,
Yeah.
Jana.
No, I get it. Like with my college essays, it's been like hard, like, showing other people because like it's embarrassing, but definitely like, starting small with like, people you trust, like your family, your friends, and then kind of, going to more like bigger groups of people, strangers or whatnot.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other advice or anything you have for young authors?
Just do it. Just do it. I mean, when I say join writing clubs and tell people what you're doing, that's just a small portion. The largest portion is to just sit in that chair and do it. And it really takes a lot of self-discipline, and you just have to make it like a routine, like a shower.
Yeah.
And oh, one other thing that I always advise my kids and other writers is keep a diary. Write down things that happen to you, things that make you mad. You can even pretend that you're writing to a good friend. But even if the friend is next door, you could be sending them a postcard. Or people send, what is it, Instagram, and
Yeah.
they're always on social media saying, oh, I did this, did this. Copy those things and paste it in your diary so that you have you have something that you're writing all the time. So yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
that's
thank you. Thank you so much for, participating in this interview. And I think your advice will be really helpful for any, authors watching this. So thank you so much.
oh, I hope so. This has been a pleasure, and I'm always happy to help people. So
Yeah. Thank
especially
you.
writers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care and good luck.
Thank you.
All righty.